Please be upstanding for Her Honourable the Mayor and Deputy Mayor.
Okay, hang on, I've got to get a bit closer. Can't move the chair, so. Right, good evening and welcome to this meeting of this council. My name is Councillor Carol Jewell and I'm Mayor of Wokingham and will chair this meeting. Before we start the business set out in the agenda, I'd like to go through a few preliminaries. Please note that the meeting is currently being webcast live. There are no fire drills planned this evening. If the fire alarm sounds, please leave the building via the nearest exit and gather at Muster Point 2, which is located in the car park at the rear of the building. A reminder that councillors do need to stand when speaking in the chamber. Also, can councillors ensure that your nameplate is clearly displayed in front of you? I'd like to remind councillors to be mindful to speak directly into their microphones when speaking. If councillors turn away from the microphone, the sound will not be picked up by online attendees. Right, if we move on to the business of the meeting. This is my chance to say my last few words. That sounds a bit dramatic, doesn't it? You know what I mean. I just wanted to report back on how it's been to be mayor this year and how much I've enjoyed myself. My mayoral year began with the AGM of the Twyford Volunteer Drivers, and a few days later, the Lord Lieutenant's summer reception in Windsor Great Park. These diverse events really capture the spirit of the year. 1 minute I was having a pretend tea party with a 2-year-old at an official opening, perched on a very small chair, and the next I was joining the chain gang at Berkshire-wide event. The chain gang are all the mayors of Berkshire. We're called the chain gang. I played tug of war with a child holding one end of the ribbon I was trying to cut, and at the more formal end of mayoral duties, had the honour of welcoming new British citizens to our borough. I've attended events right across the borough and representing and championing the council. As you know, I took on a 60-mile charity walk for my charity Building for the Future, following the Wokingham Way around the borough boundary. It gave me a real sense of just how large and varied Wokingham Borough is. The Carol concerts last December and the sponsored walk raised £3,000 for the charity, alongside valuable support from local businesses. Thank you to everyone who supported, walked with me and sponsored me. The ball held in my honour by the charity last week raised a further £5,000. The addition of the charity's details to all my email signatures raised awareness and attracted another £15,000 from a contractor who is now helping with the refurbishment of the new premises in Thames Valley Park. It is to be called the Ability Hub. Being mayor meant chairing full council meetings. It took a little time to get the microphone arrangement right so that everyone could hear me. I appreciate your patience with that. Chairing those meetings were made much easier by the support of the officers, especially Head of Democratic Services Priya and our CEO Susan, and of course my Deputy Mayor Rob Comer. My thanks go to Rob for all his support during meetings, particularly in keeping an eye on timings and hands raised during the meeting, and for stepping in as Deputy Mayor at events I was unable to attend. I would like to say a heartfelt thank you to Caroline, the Mayor's officer, for her guidance and for the great care with which she managed my diary and the many invitations I received. My sister Lynn was my consort who couldn't be here this evening. She acted as consort on several occasions, and I was very proud how she took on the role. And finally, last but not least, Beth Rowland, for acting as my consort on a number of occasions. So I have got some gifts if you turn off. Right, I'm surprised I haven't tripped over these robes yet, but there's still time. So the first item is the election of mayor. I'd like to invite nominations for the office of mayor for the municipal year 26-27. Yes, Charles.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to propose Shahid Yunus for mayor.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder? Thank you. Any other nominations? Lou?
Thank you. I'd like to propose Councillor Rob Comer for mayor.
Thank you. And do you have a seconder? Thank you. Are there any other nominations? Does each of the proposers, do you wish to make a short speech? I'll start with you, Charles, in support of your nomination.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to propose Shahid Yunus for mayor. He's lived in the borough since 2002. He's been a Woodley Town Councillor since 2003 and a borough councillor since 2011. He's campaigned for and led initiatives including the improvement of Bulmush School, the elderly housing on Foster's Lane, the new Bulmush Leisure Centre, the £4.4 million expansion of Addington School. He co-founded a charity in 2005 aimed at enhancing the prospects for young people from vulnerable backgrounds in our borough. He's also served as the governor of Bulmush School for 6 years and has formerly been on the board of Loddon Homes. He's held executive, deputy executive and shadow portfolios over his time on the council and knows pretty much everything there is to know in the council, and certainly more than me. He's a true local champion. I'd like to propose him as mayor.
Thank you very much. Lou, you're...
Yes, thank you. I'd like to propose Rob Comer as the next mayor. When recruiting someone for any position of responsibility, it's important to assess any relevant experience they might have. So having served as Deputy Mayor and Mayor for Wokingham Town, as well as Deputy Mayor for Wokingham Borough over the last 3 years, I think we can safely say he ticks that box. But what about other relevant qualities? So the Mayor of Wokingham Borough serves an important dual role. They are the first citizen of the borough, representing both the council and the residents in a civic and ceremonial role. Additionally, they preside over the full council, ensuring that local democracy is conducted fairly and effectively. Having served as Deputy Town Mayor to Rob's Mayor, I saw firsthand the qualities he will bring to this role. He's committed to public service and engages enthusiastically with our diverse community. He's visible and approachable, genuinely interested in people, and is known for his warmth and humour. I have no doubt he will do an excellent job of making people in our community feel respected, included, and represented. And when it comes to chairing these meetings, I know he will do so with integrity and impartiality, as the role demands. I'm sure he will deal with any disagreements across the chamber with diplomacy, but let's hope he doesn't need to leverage too much of his own unique sense of humour to do so. At a time when respectful leadership and community cohesion matter more than ever, I believe Rob is exactly the right person for this role. I'm therefore proud to propose Councillor Rob Comer as the next Mayor of Wokingham Borough.
Thank you, Lou. We'll now go to the vote, and I'm going to ask Susan to conduct that, please.
Thank you. So I'm going to call the votes in alphabetical order in terms of councillors. So if I take Councillor Rob Comer first, for those in favour, please can you put your hands up? Thank you. Those against? Abstentions? Thank you. So now if I go to Councillor Shahid Yunus, if you can raise your hand if in favour. If you raise your hand against or abstention. So thank you very much. So upon conclusion of the voting for each nominee, I declare that Councillor Rob Comer be elected as Mayor of Wokingham Borough Council for 26-27 municipal year.
We'll now retire for a short time to swap over and be back as soon as possible. Thank you.
Please be seated. I, Rob Comer, having been elected to the office of Mayor of Wokingham Borough Council, declare that I take that office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties of it according to the best of my judgment and ability. Sure.
If you put your name. Yeah, yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Fellow councillors, guests, ladies and gentlemen, to the councillors, thank you for electing me as Mayor and first citizen of Wokingham Borough. I'm fully aware of the honour that this role provides, and I'm fortunate, as have been many borough mayors before me, in having previously been a town mayor, in my case for Wokingham Town. So basically that means I know the ropes. And for me, the role of mayor consists effectively of three roles. Firstly, the business of the council, which is what we're doing right now, the agenda and chairing of the council meetings. Secondly, representing and promoting the borough council itself in a variety of fora. And thirdly, representing the people of the borough, hence the term first citizen. But you can't take that too seriously, or at least you can't take yourself too seriously. Because I also know that when one is acting as mayor, a key part of the job is really just to act as a photographic backdrop. Something against which other people's photographs are taken. Part of the job is to stand where you are asked to, and to smile when you are asked to. It never ceases to amaze me when people say, "Ooh, can we have a picture with the mayor?" But you've got to remember that this is not a picture with you. It's a picture with the mayor and what you represent in that role. And therein lies the honour. Wokingham Borough is a pretty good place. It's generally affluent, but as all the councillors here know, it also has areas of deprivation who need our help and support. And wherever possible, this council tries to provide that help where needed. But pretty much wherever you go in the borough, whether in our towns or villages or anywhere else, you'll find a small army of people and organisations that try to help too. It constantly amazes me, and it is always humbling when I come across the charities and groups that give their time, their effort, and their money, not asking for any reward, and barely getting an echo, and barely getting any recognition. From CLASP to the Citizen Advice Bureau, from Diana Brimblecombe to Daisy's Dream, from the Lions to the Link Visiting Scheme. There are so many in our borough, and we should be grateful for each and every one of them. And when I go and visit these people and organisations, the role that I represent is providing a level of recognition and appreciation that these people and organisations so richly deserve. And therein, too, lies the honour. So now, before we move on to the next item on the agenda, I would just like to express my thanks, both personally and on behalf of the whole council, to the outgoing mayor, Carol Jewell. In my view, Carol has been an exemplary mayor. Her commitment and dedication through all cannot be faulted. She's enthusiastically attended multiple events almost every single week of her term. And in my view, Carol picks one hell of a punch in her diminutive frame. Admittedly, she sometimes struggled to be heard at the back of the chamber, but you can't have everything. I think I'm going to find it very hard to follow in her footsteps, literally, considering that she walked the entire boundaries of the borough during her term. Carol, can we present you with your past mayor's badge? Equally, on behalf of the Council, I'd like to express our appreciation to the Mayor's consort, Lynn Hayward, who unfortunately isn't able to be here today. Some consorts enjoy the role, some put up with it, but all consorts provide support to their Mayor in what can occasionally be quite a challenging role. And finally, there's the new Mayor's consort. I'd like to thank my consort, my eldest daughter Vicky, for agreeing to perform the role. I'm sure she believes that she'll be able to keep her dear old dad from putting his foot in his mouth from time to time. Good luck with that, Vicky, and thanks. I'd like to present you with your badge. So now we move on to the next item on the agenda, item 2, the appointment of the Deputy Mayor for the municipal year 2026 to 2027. I'd now like to invite nominations for the office of Deputy Mayor for the municipal year 2026 to 2027. Pauline.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and congratulations. I'd like to nominate Jackie Rance.
Jackie Rance. And do you have a seconder? Charles Markets. And are there any other nominations? Oh. Sorry. Beth?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and congratulations. And I really hope you enjoy your year of office. It'll be different to everything else. That's all you can say, really. I'd like to nominate Melanie de Jong as Deputy Mayor. I've known Melanie for several years now. She is a really down-to-earth, honest,
Beth.
funny.
Beth. We just need the second. I'll ask you to speak in a minute if that's okay. Do we have a second? Yes, apparently we do. Martin Alder, thank you. Are there any other nominations? No. Okay. Pauline, as proposer, would you like to speak to your club?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to propose Jackie Rance, who has been a long-standing borough councillor in Wokingham for two terms, both from 21 to 24 and from 25 to date. She's also been a parish councillor, most unusually in Shinfield and in Earley. So she has a wide knowledge of the borough, certainly in that area. And she's also been an ex-JP, so she was a JP for many years. She's got a lot of experience of dealing with people and issues and also chairing quite difficult meetings, so she would be a very good Deputy Mayor. She's currently Governor of Shinfield St Mary's School. She helps at the Share Food Bank, and she is really dedicated to local residents, especially those in need. So I'd be very happy to nominate Jackie for this post.
Thank you. Beth, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to nominate Melanie de Jong as Deputy Mayor for this year. Melanie is a colleague and a friend I've known for some time. She's down to earth, she's honest, she has a wicked sense of humour. She likes coffee and talking, and we have a lot of fun with her. She's been an Early Town Councillor for some time now and also served as Early Town Council Mayor for her year. She will make an admirable mayor for us because she gets on with everybody. She has a really generous spirit of heart and she'll fit in well. Thank you, Rob, for that.
Thank you for that. So what we'll do is we'll take the votes in alphabetical order. So if I call out the first, that's Councillor Melanie de Jong. If you could raise your hands if you're voting for. If you're voting against or abstention. Thank you. So now we move to the Councillor Jackie Rance. If you're voting for, voting against, or abstention. Thank you. So upon conclusion of the voting of each nominee, I declare that Councillor Melanie de Jong is elected as Deputy Mayor of Wokingham Borough Council for the 2026-27 municipal year.
I was going to say, Councillor de Jong, please join me at the dais, but you're already on your way.
I, Melanie de Jong, having been elected to the office of Deputy Mayor of Wokingham Borough Council, declare that I take that office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties of it according to the best of my judgment and ability. Yeah. Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you very much. Mr. Mayor, fellow councillors, officers and guests, firstly, I would like to express my sincere thanks to my fellow councillors for placing their trust and confidence in me by electing me as Deputy Mayor of the Borough for the forthcoming year. I feel both honoured and privileged to be given the opportunity to serve and represent all the residents of our borough in this important civic role. Although I have only been a borough councillor for a relatively short time, it has already been a very rewarding experience. I have met many dedicated people, both within the council and throughout our committees, who work tirelessly to make a positive difference to the life of others. I would also like to acknowledge the commitment and hard work of councillors of all parties, together with our officers and staff, whose efforts help and support strengthen our borough every day. As Deputy Mayor, I will do my very best to support our Mayor, serve this council and represent our borough with dignity, fairness, commitment and enthusiasm. Thank you.
Thanks, Melanie. And Stephen, I think you wanted to say a word.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and can I congratulate you? I'm not the first to do so, but I think I am the first to congratulate the new Deputy Mayor. I congratulate both of you on your appointments. I shall do all in my power to support you both and to make your management of our meetings as painless as it can be. May I also take this opportunity to second, Mr. Mayor, your thanks to the outgoing Mayor for her service to the Council and the Borough over the last municipal year. Carol was already a well-established and respected councillor when I first joined what was then Wokingham District Council, I'm afraid more than 30 years ago. I hasten to add, incredibly young. It gave me great pleasure last year to see her going up to take her place as Mayor after many years of incredible service to Woodley. It was wonderful to see her receiving proper recognition in the role of Borough Mayor. And I wish her well for the future. I'm delighted that she'll be continuing to serve the people of Southlake and the borough following her successful re-election on the 7th of May. And I should like, if I may, just briefly, Mr. Mayor, also to take this opportunity to welcome new councillors, David and Leon on the Conservative side, and Mahima, Risha and Roberta for the Lib Dems. And welcome back Chris Johnson, another Lib Dem. And finally, I should like to thank those who are not returning to the council, and especially Catherine Harding, who missed out by the narrowest of margins in a hotly contested election in Thames Ward. I think all councillors, whether political friends or rivals, would acknowledge that she was a deeply impressive councillor and a very strong executive member for Environment and Climate Emergency. I hope she'll return to the council soon so we can again benefit from her exceptional skill and knowledge. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Now, before we move on to the next item, can I ask that all guests are welcome, if they wish to watch the remainder of the proceedings, but from the public gallery. So if I can ask those of you to leave the council chamber, please. Item 3 on the agenda, apologies. Are there any apologies for absence, please?
There are Councillor Ainsley and Councillor Ashwell, and we have two councillors attending online. That's Councillor Solomon and Councillor Srinivasan.
Thank you. Item 4 on the agenda, the minutes of the previous meetings. So may I sign the minutes of the meeting held on the 26th of March, I hope 2025? I think this, yeah. May I sign the minutes of the meeting held on 26th of March 2026 as a correct record? May I have a show of hands, please? As there is a majority, the minutes are agreed. Thank you very much. Item number 5, declarations of interest. Does anyone wish to declare an interest in any item on the agenda? Thank you. Agenda item number 6, the returning officer report on the 7th of May borough elections. I understand Councillor Imogen Shepherd-Dubey is proposing this report. Is that correct?
It is, thank you.
And is there a seconder? Thank you very much, Stephen. Imogen, would you like to speak to the report?
Yes, please.
You have 3 minutes.
Yet again, we need to thank our officers for delivering a well-organised and consistent set of local elections where we can all feel that we're getting reliable and indisputable results. Hundreds of people have been involved with getting the candidates organised, managing the postal votes, running 45 polling stations on the day for over 15 hours, followed by a smooth and organised day of counting at Loddon Valley Leisure Centre. We all need to be immensely grateful for everything that they do for our residents and us as a council. Andrew Moulton is our returning officer, and his report here only lightly covers the details of what happened. But I am confident that everyone in this room understands the magnitude of effort that goes into these elections. Keeping the problems minimal and ensuring that any issues that occur are dealt with quickly and fairly is something that we are all thankful for. I'm going to suggest that we accept this report with our enormous thanks to all of the people involved. Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you, Imogen. Does any councillor wish to speak against the report? So we now move to a vote on this item. All those in favour of the recommendations set out in the report, please raise your hand. Thank you. All those against? And any abstentions? Thank you very much. The recommendations are carried. Agenda item number 7, the Mayor's announcements. Clearly, I haven't really had time to do much yet, so there won't be too many announcements on that. However, I would like to, echo what Stephen said and to give a very warm welcome to the newly elected and returning councillors, which on my list certainly in alphabetical order were Mahima Bose, David Bragg, Roberta Brooks, Leon Cook, Chris Johnson and Reacher Singh. We welcome everybody to the council of all parties, and we know that you'll contribute significantly both to the council and to your communities. Thank you very much and welcome. And again, as Stephen said, we bid a goodbye to a number of councillors. Again, in alphabetical order, we bid goodbye to George Evans, Alex Freeney, Catherine Hardin, Adrian Mather, Jordan Montgomery and Stuart Munro. And I'd like to make a personal point also to echo indeed what Stephen said again. And I think we will miss Catherine, who I think I'd agree with that Stephen was an excellent executive member. And I was particularly impressed with the way she performed in the council meetings, especially with supplementary questions, which is always a difficult one, which she answered in a well-informed manner, polite, and basically doing exactly what you would like an executive member to do. And finally, I'd like to also make a particular note of Alex Freeney, a young man who is unusual in these chambers, but he was very well informed. He was persuasive. He was entertaining, an unusual feature often in these cases. I'm sad that we've lost him here, but I hope that politics has not heard the last of Alex. And finally, I'd like to take the opportunity to announce that the Mayor's charity this year will be Daisy's Dream. And my thanks go to one of my colleagues who suggested I go and talk to them when I was considering potential charities to support. For those who don't know, Daisy's Dream is a local charity based in Earley, and it supports bereaved children. The loss of grandparents and the like is to be expected in a child's life. However, the loss of a parent or particular sibling is a potential major trauma in a young person's life. And Daisy's Dream exists to support children and their families going through this process. Many children will not need any support, but for others, this can be an issue that shapes their entire lives. Often, even talking about the death of a parent, brother or sister can be a problem for these children. They may well feel they cannot discuss it in their own family due to the upset it causes, and they bottle up their feelings. Daisy's Dream supports children going through this process, enabling them to understand that they are not alone in this, and it helps them come to terms with the death. I hadn't realised how many children go through this bereavement in their young lives. More than 1 in 29 children suffer such a bereavement. So that's one in every class, in every school in the borough. I hope you'll help me support Daisy's dream during this year. So, thank you very much. We'll move on to item 8. Statements from the leader, executive members and leader of the opposition. I'd like to invite the leader to speak and set out his arrangements for the executive for the 26-27 year. Stephen, you have 10 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'm grateful to the electors of Wokingham for enabling the current administration to continue its work to make the borough a place where everyone, regardless of who they are, can thrive as individuals and contribute to our community. I'm particularly pleased that the good people of the borough rejected the politics of division and hatred and chose hope over fear and stability over chaos. But few elections bring unalloyed joy. The loss of Catherine Harding is a blow, not only to the Liberal Democrat group, but to the council. In just 15 months as an executive member, she proved her exceptional abilities. I hope she can return to the council at the first opportunity. Meanwhile, to accommodate her loss, I have made some changes to executive responsibilities and have asked Stephen Newton to join the executive to oversee the development of our refuse and recycling services. Martin Alder has signified that he wishes to stand down at the next election and weigh on the executive for a colleague who will be with us for longer. I thank Martin for his service and for his characteristic selflessness. I shall forever be in his debt for his stepping up when our dear friend and colleague Paul Fishwick died. Martin's current responsibilities for planning will be added to my portfolio, creating room to bring in Bassett Alvey, who will take on the important role of guiding technological change in the council. No one can deny that the executive and the council will have its work cut out. We face substantial financial challenges. We are in the first year of a 3-year local government finance settlement, which will see a net reduction in Wokingham's government support of £43 million by 2028-29. Yet our costs are rising as inflation goes up and demand for our services grows, both in volume and complexity. Even so, I remain optimistic. I am heartened by what has been achieved over the last 4 years and by what I see as 3 big advantages that we possess. The first is the work we are doing with our local community. Wokingham, whatever the naysayers may claim, is not broken. It has great schools, a world-class university, socially responsible businesses, and an impressive, as you've already referred to, Mr. Mayor, voluntary and charitable sector. By working alongside and in collaboration with our community, drawing on its knowledge, experience, and expertise, we have been able to stretch our limited resources and make them go farther. Pooling our efforts produces better outcomes than when we try to make a difference on our own. Our success in partnership working has been recognised nationally. It's identified as a cause of our high ranking in the well-respected InPower Index of Council's efficiency. We are rated second in the country in terms of outputs achieved per pound spent. A big advantage we possess, a second big advantage, is our internal strength. We have impressive and dedicated officers who want to make a difference and are committed to the public service. I hope all councillors appreciate the enormous contribution our officers make. Without them, we could do literally nothing. They are, as I've said many times and will continue saying, the council's greatest asset. Our third advantage is another internal strength, the great range of experience and talent to be found in elected councillors of all parties. In the coming year, I should like to continue to build upon the progress we have made with the overview and scrutiny committees, enabling non-executive members to work with executive colleagues to strengthen proposed policies and initiatives. My executive colleagues and I have regularly appeared at overview and scrutiny committees to answer questions and debate ideas. The result has been a much more productive dialogue than in the past. I hope we can extend this good practice in the coming year, giving non-executive councillors greater opportunities to contribute constructively to policy development at an early stage. In this spirit, I have offered, as I have done every year that I have led the council, the chairs and vice chairs of different committees to the Conservative and Labour groups. My group will also not seek to use its majority to monopolise outside body appointments, unlike our Conservative predecessors, who I'm afraid embraced the winner-takes-all principle. In marked contrast, we are providing opportunities for our Labour and Conservative colleagues to represent the council on those bodies where local connection or particular interest or expertise makes that appropriate. I hope we can all agree that sound finances are a priority. Without them, we can do nothing to serve the public. We need to be innovative, using all the tools available to us to save time and money in our processes and procedures. We need to think long-term, engaging in invest-to-save initiatives and promoting prevention and early intervention to reduce future budgetary pressures. And we need to keep our reserves at a level sufficient to give us protection against unforeseen circumstances in this uncertain world. But despite our financial challenges, much has been achieved. Over the last year, we've been able to enhance bus services, libraries and other community facilities, acquire a new care home, see the new local plan through the first stage of the inspector's examination and much of the second, build more energy efficient new affordable homes at Gorse Ride, the council's flagship regeneration scheme, allocate additional funds to our road network, provide additional school places to meet local needs, and invest in new sixth form buildings and additional in-borough SEND provision. Much remains to be done, but there are three areas particularly on which I hope we can all focus this coming year. The first is a new compact with our town and parish councils, which properly recognises their key role in their local communities and provides genuine opportunities for them to work in partnership with the Borough Council for the benefit of the residents that we jointly serve. The second is progress on improving access to Twyford Station, which is used by residents across the borough, not just those in the immediate environs of Twyford itself. The third is perhaps the most ambitious of all. We need a sharper and more coordinated approach to what we can do to help young people, both in the education system and beyond. We need to devote more attention to their concerns relating to such matters as disability and disadvantage, mental health and well-being, transport, jobs and skills, and access to housing. I want us both to broaden and to deepen our engagement with younger people so we can better understand the challenges they face. The inevitable tendency of a system shaped by the electoral cycle is to focus on the needs and wants of the voters of today. We need to focus with equal clarity on the interests of the next generation and those that follow it. What we do now can influence their life chances. We must not let them down. They are the future, not just of our borough, but of our nation and of our world. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Stephen. I'd now like to invite Pauline Jorgensen as the Leader of the Opposition to speak. Pauline, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I start by welcoming you to your position and congratulating you on your election? Let me also thank Councillor Jewell for her services as Borough Mayor in the last municipal year. I'd like to welcome and congratulate all the new members on their elections. It takes courage and hard work to run for election, and you did very well to get here. Our pluralist democracy relies on ordinary people coming forward, willing to put forward their ideas for the local community and to be judged by their neighbours at the ballot box. I was delighted to see a particularly high turnout this year, a sign of how engaged local people are. It's important we also highlight the hard work undertaken by officers in the smooth and well-run election. I'd particularly like to congratulate Andrew and his team for another great election campaign, so thank you. The Conservative group has 2 new additions. David Bragg in Loddon Ward has been a Woodley Town Councillor since 2018. He ran a strong campaign around improving Woodley Town Centre, backing 1-hour free parking, fighting the Liberal Democrats' imposition of 20-mile-an-hour speed limits in inappropriate areas. Leon Cook in the Thames Ward stood on a clear pledge to protect the Greenbelt, to reduce council waste and ensure that it listens to residents. He also campaigned to make our roads safe and to afford local families the choice of a school that is appropriate for them. The fact that voters put their support behind him shows how much this resonated locally. An essential part of the role of the opposition is to scrutinise and hold the administration to account, however much they may not like it. My shadow executive team is a strong one, united in standing up for our residents. Charles Margetts continues as very effective deputy leader and will take on the shadow portfolio for finance. Shahid Yunus will scrutinise adult services, whilst Dave Edmonds will be responsible for shadowing the rolling group on town centre regeneration, economic development and housing. Wayne Swith will continue his excellent work on planning and the new local plan, which will be coming our way soon. Rebecca Margetts will take on children's services, and Shona Turtle will be shadow executive member for environment and leisure. Moses Ayangumwena is shadowing highways, transport and climate, particularly appropriate for a structural engineer, and Vishal Srivasanan will take on community safety and public protection. Finally, Jackie Rance is part of the shadow executive covering resident services, inclusion and poverty, which are 3 of her main passions in life, I think. The Conservative success in returning after local elections with the same number of seats demonstrates how much our message is resonating with local people. At the same time, the Lib Dems, despite picking up 1 seat, didn't have a good election. Their colleagues on other councils in the South East made far bigger gains, and in Earley and Woodley part of the borough, they came second to the Conservative in terms of votes. It's not hard to see why. Residents are fed up with the Liberal Democrat administration that wastes their money, puts their council tax and local charges up while slashing their services, and ignores what people think in favour of whatever the ruling group wants. Over 4 years, we've seen delays to the new building of schools, flats delivered late at Carnival and a loss to taxpayers, underinvestment in roads, council buildings sitting empty rather than generating income, public bins scrapped, collections reduced only for the administration to reverse its position and claim the decision had never been made in the first place, fortnightly bin collections imposed against the wishes of residents, parking charges hiked to eye-watering levels combined with uncoordinated roadworks, with evidence from local businesses that this has negatively impacted their trade. A local plan including nearly 4,000 houses at Hall Farm rammed through in a week, despite repeated concerns raised about it, and in particular its impact on local roads and local residents. A solar farm project, which was on course under the Conservatives, but which is now years behind schedule under the Lib Dems, with the possibility of millions of pounds being lost. The fact that Liberal Democrats saw an executive member lose her seat shows how unhappy residents are at the botched climate policies and the solar farm. As for Labour, residents made it very clear they've had enough of Keir Starmer and the Labour government in less than 2 years, and who can blame them? Though in this case, the Prime Minister, that problem could be dealt with soon enough. Even our local Labour MP has withdrawn her support. People are tired with the trail of broken promises and flip-flops, from Royal Berkshire Hospital funding, tax increases, winter fuel allowance cuts. Labour actually need to put country before party rather than using it as yet another empty slogan, and properly govern. Over the next year, the priority of the Conservative group is to listen to residents, scrutinise the Liberal Democrats and set out an alternative vision. We will continue pressing for future housing developments to be kept at sustainable levels in the right places. We will fight against Liberal Democrats' ideological war on motorists and their unwillingness to listen to feedback. We will hold the administration to account for its flagrant waste and use of taxpayers' money on strategies, paperwork and roundabouts painted with leaves, rather than actual services. We will continue to campaign against Labour's drastic cuts to council funding. There is a better way, and more residents are hearing us, seeing the disaster that is this Liberal Democrat council and recognising that the Conservatives represent the right approach for Wokingham Borough.
Thank you, Pauline. Moving on to item 9, public question time. I'd like to remind executive councillors that responses to questions must be no longer than 2 minutes, and these will be timed. We have one public question. Mr. Wheat, would you put your question, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In light of the local plan's requirements for strategic infrastructure, can the council confirm whether it has met its adopted standards of provision for allotments and community orchards across all strategic developments completed between 2024 and 2026? Furthermore, please provide a breakdown of the total hectares secured via Section 106 agreements versus those physically handed over during this period, and outline what remedial actions are being taken to mitigate any shortfalls that may be exacerbating local allotment waiting lists. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question, Peter. I was going to say it's good to see you again, but I can't actually see you. I think your camera's off, but it's good to see you back in the council asking a question about a subject I know you care about passionately. The delivery of new allotment sites does not always exactly mirror the delivery of new dwellings. And in some years, we will provide less than the standard 0.52 hectares per thousand population. And in others, we will go above this level. However, crucially, all of the allocated strategic development locations, or SDLs, will provide sufficient new allotment sites to meet our current policy standard, except for the south of the M4 SDL. There is a small shortfall in that SDL where a large part of the site was approved at appeal without securing the allotment provision. And the parish council has decided that they already have sufficient allotment provision to meet local need. Between 2024 and 2026, we opened one new allotment site off Quiller Avenue in Arborfield Green, with a further 2 sites in Arborfield under construction and due to be completed in early 2027. The council will, of course, continue to ensure that approved developments meet all of their Section 106 agreements, obligations, including the provision of new allotment sites. Officers will provide you with an updated table of the approved and delivered allotment sites within the borough in the same format as they provided to you in 2024.
Thank you, Stephen. Peter, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, I do, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. And thank you, Stephen, for your reply. So my supplementary question is this. Where Section 106 obligations for allotments or community orchards have been secured, but the physical delivery is delayed beyond the trigger points agreed in the planning permissions, what enforcement actions or financial penalties has the council actively levied against developers during the 2024 to 2026 period? Furthermore, are any secured commuted sums currently unspent? And if so, what is the timeline for allocating these funds to expand existing municipal allotment sites? Thank you.
Thank you very much for that supplementary, Peter. I would not have been able to answer it had you not been generous enough to provide me with your supplementary question this afternoon, admittedly late this afternoon, but I'm very, very grateful for you doing that because it enables me to be able to give you a response that has been crafted by our officers who know the details of this far better than I do. And I'm grateful for them for putting in work rather close to the start of this meeting to answer your question. The avenue to enforce a legal agreement is through the courts. As with all non-compliance issues, we seek to resolve those through working positively with the parties concerned and take formal action only when that's considered appropriate. There is around £70,000 funds which are unspent relating to allotments. As the Borough Council does not manage allotments, our Green Infrastructure team engages with parish and town councils who do manage provision to enable them to make enhanced provision on their sites. Funds would be allocated to a parish or town when a project is identified. As already mentioned, officers will be providing you with more detail of the latest delivery of allotments within the borough.
Thank you, Stephen. That concludes the public questions, and we move on to item 10, Parish and Town Council questions. And I can confirm that we've had no questions submitted by town and parish councils. Therefore, item 11, petitions. Does anyone wish to submit a petition? Thank you very much. Therefore, agenda item 12, Members' Allowances Scheme, the report and recommendations of the IRP. Before I ask that this report be proposed, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to the independent panel members who are attending this evening for the item. We have Nick Fellows, Chair of the Independent Remuneration Panel, Jeremy Wood and Karina Disney with us. And I'd like to invite Nick, as Chair of the IRP, to say a few words.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I have to say it's an honour to present our report to such an auspicious meeting with the Council this evening. My thanks, first of all, to Jeremy and to Karina for their support and contribution towards pulling the report together, and to Karina for creating the body of the report. And also our thanks to Priya Patel, who's helped support the whole process, in particular by bringing forward gathering comparative data and historic data, which has all helped in informing the recommendations we put forward. Thanks to the councillors who responded to the questionnaire that we put out, and to those who gave their time and met with us in person to talk about their views. It became very clear very quickly that there's a very broad spectrum of views regarding both what the role is for and also the remuneration that's attached to that. Should the role be, for example, a volunteer community service, or actually does it compare with a very senior responsibility for policy and financial considerations and perhaps be remunerated more at the senior professional staff level? Nobody pushed for that in particular, but it was an interesting range of thoughts. It also is very clear there's no specific definition of what the allowance is for, other than that councils have to make an allowance available. And that created some discussion as well, and didn't help in our deliberations. It's clear that the idea of the remuneration, the allowance, is to ensure that councillors are not out of pocket for fulfilling their role, but it doesn't go as far as putting a value on their time or imply replacing a certain salary level if someone decides to work part-time along their councillor role. So one of our key considerations is to ensure that no one is put off from being a councillor due to the cost or the low level of income it produces, and in order to ensure diversity among the councillor group and the widest possible representation of all resident groups and communities. The role should not only attract those of independent means and with adequate spare time. It's very evident that the basic allowance now is worth substantially less than it was when it was last increased, and it has fallen behind not just inflationary pressure measures, but also other local neighbouring authorities and comparatives around and about. Our proposals are made in the full knowledge and understanding of the severe financial pressures the council faces, but also with trying to ensure councillors do not become more worse off as the cost of living increases as a result of not increasing the allowance. We're not proposing any catch-up component, but the proposal is to link an annual increase to CPI, so that councillors should not fall further behind And we believe that increases transparency because that's declared up front and should avoid the topic becoming an annual political debate, which is where the value of having an independent panel may be realised. So our proposals fall into three categories. First of all, an increase in the basic allowance. Secondly, adjustments to other allowances to provide additional support aimed at increasing diversity. And finally, a recommendation for a further review of the special responsibilities allowances. Thank you for your consideration of our report this evening.
Thank you very much, Nick. I understand that Councillor Imogen Shepherd-Dubey will be proposing this report. Is that correct?
That is correct indeed.
And is there a seconder?
I'm seconding.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.
Imogen, would you like to speak to the report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay. This report covers many things tonight. As you've just heard, the Independent Remuneration Panel is an independent group of residents who look at our council allowances, ensuring that what we are paid is fair, consistent and in line with national policies. These recommendations are not coming from councillors, and we really must thank the Independent Remuneration Panel members for their time and work putting together this report. Wokingham Borough Council has one of the lowest basic rates of allowances in the country, and it is the lowest in Berkshire. At £7,784 per year, these allowances are in place so that no one who serves as a councillor is out of pocket for doing so. It ensures that our residents are truly represented by councillors who reflect our communities and not just those who can afford to be a councillor. True democracy should not be limited by someone's wealth or financial circumstances. Given the amount of work that most councillors do, if considered as a salary, the remuneration is far below the minimum wage. Even in the financially challenged council of Royal Borough of Windsor neighbour Maidenhead next door, councillors get nearly £1,300 per annum more than Wokingham. Labour-run Reading Borough Council, the other side of us, councillors get over £2,000 more per year as a basic allowance than Wokingham. It's hard to argue that our responsibilities and cost of living here in Wokingham Borough is any less than our neighbours. However, this evening we are not voting for an increase in our basic allowance. We are agreeing with the recommendation that allowances are just linked to the Consumer Price Index, the same as the state pension. This is so that the true value of our allowance at least remains consistent with inflation, even if it is still much lower than similar councils. We are also voting to ensure that the childcare costs that we claim are linked to the real living wage. This allowance is not claimed by many councillors, but I think we can all agree that childcare costs should not be a barrier if we want our councillors to be a diverse and inclusive group. We are also voting for the recommendations for the dependent carers allowance to be matched to the adult social care support framework. So if you're responsible for looking after someone who is elderly or disabled, you are not limited due to the cost of their care. In point 5, we are hoping that you will support the changes to the travel subsistence rates to encourage car sharing when we are carrying out our councillor duties. On all of these points, I might remind councillors that if they feel strongly about accepting any of these items, they do have an option of not accepting or claiming their councillor allowances. However, I would not want any person to be blocking anyone else from claiming them if they really need it. I might add the financial information at the end of the report, assuming councillors accept their change to their allowances. The pension scheme changes were not included in the budget until the full details of what would be included until May the 11th was when we first knew exactly what it involved. This pension scheme is now open to anybody who's under the age of 75 and pays in for at least 2 years. So any councillor could join, and all councils across the country are obliged to include a pension scheme. So it is on that note, I hope that you can support these, what is being proposed in this report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Imogen. And before I go on to ask if anybody wants to speak against it, I'd ask councillors to note that I've received a request that I received a request that recommendation 1 be voted on separately, and I'm content to accommodate that request. So now, does any councillor wish to speak against the report? Please put your hands up. Right. Just the one then. Yep. Okay. So we did the second. Right. In which case, thank you, Rachel. In which case, Rachel, the other Rachel, Rachel Bishop Firth, do you wish to speak now or reserve your right?
I'd like to reserve my right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Too many Rachels. Rachel Burgess, would you like to speak? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I would like to echo the thanks to the Independent Review Panel for the considerable work that they've done. They've clearly carried out a thorough and thoughtful review on a voluntary basis, and I appreciated the opportunity to meet with them personally and share my views which I can see are reflected in the report, so thank you. We support recommendations 2 to 6, but having spoken to the panel, they won't be surprised that I disagree with the first recommendation here to vote for a permanent annual pay rise for councillors. First, I believe that councillor allowances funded by public money should always be subject to public scrutiny and democratic accountability every single year. In contrast, this proposal set automatic pay increases every year with no debate, locking in permanent annual increases year after year after year. Imogen described this a moment ago as not an increase, which is quite something really. When will CPI be zero, I'm wondering. A few years ago it was, 11%. So this would have locked us into a huge obscene rise at that time. In addition, the timing of the decision brought forward immediately after the elections will not go unnoticed by our residents. Second, politics should never be about money. This is not a job. It's not employment. It's a public service. These payments are allowances intended to support councillors in carrying out their duties. They're not salaries designed to replace paid work. Some councillors will argue that higher allowances are necessary to improve diversity in local government. Of course, we all want councils that better reflect the communities that we serve. But I'm afraid the argument just doesn't stand up to scrutiny. For example, in our group, every one of us works full-time alongside our council responsibilities, as many other people here do. Excluding the executive councillors whose workloads are clearly different, for most councillors, this allowance is not intended to replace employment income. So the argument that some may not be able to afford to be a councillor without pay rises doesn't wash in reality. The diversity of this chamber is decided essentially by political parties and by the electorate, and not about the money on offer. Others will say, like Imogen has, that neighbouring councils are paying more, but frankly, so what? This debate is not about keeping up with other authorities, it's about what is right for the residents of Woking. Third, I note that all councillors are now provided with a brand new laptop, such as I have here. In that context, I struggle to understand how a £500 Home Office allowance can still be justified. It should be removed. This is effectively a pay rise in itself. Fourth, for months and months, and again here this evening, the Liberal Democrat administration has warned that the council finances are in crisis mode due to funding cuts. If that's truly the case, then I ask all of the Liberal Democrat councillors here, how can they now justify voting themselves a pay rise? This proposal will cost £58,000 this year, around £70,000 next year, and another £70,000 in the year after that. And there is no budget for it. What council services will be cut in order to fund these increases? To finish, I'll ask every councillor just this one question. Think about your residents. Think about how they will feel if tonight you vote yourself a permanent annual pay rise using public money, while at the same time warning there's not enough of that public money for essential local services. It's not what residents elected us to do.
Can you
For
wrap
that
up,
reason,
please?
I'll be voting against recommendation 1, and I urge all councillors to do the right thing and join us in opposing this. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Can I ask if there are any other councillors who wish to speak either for or against? Lou Martin Prue. Thank you. Put your hands down. In no particular order. Lou Timlin, if you'd like to speak.
Thank you. Firstly, I'd just like to say thank you very much to the members of the Independent Remuneration Committee for their work, and I very much welcome the recommendations. Diverse representation in local government matters. Research shows that elected representatives bring their own backgrounds and experiences to policy discussions, so it's important that those elected reflect the communities they serve. However, in England, only 36% of local councillors are women. Research also suggests that around half of council chambers do not reflect the racial diversity of their communities, and the average age of a local councillor is 60. There are many reasons for this lack of diversity, but two significant barriers are the time commitment required and the financial impact of serving as a councillor. Put simply, public service is harder to access for people without sufficient time and financial security or flexible employment. Everyone in this chamber is here because we care deeply about our community, but we also have a responsibility to ensure that serving as a councillor is not something open only to those who can most easily afford it. It's always difficult for councillors to vote on their own remuneration, which is why I particularly welcome these recommendations from an independent committee. The recommendation to uprate allowances annually in line with the Consumer Price Index is not a proposal for a real terms increase. Rather, it is recognition that if allowances are continually eroded by inflation, the financial barriers to serving will only grow over time. Supporting this recommendation is therefore about more than allowances alone. It is about helping to ensure that local government remains accessible to people from a wide range of backgrounds now and in the future.
Thank you, Lou. Martijn, if you'd like to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Today I will cast a vote on whether to increase allowances for all councillors in this council, including myself. I find that genuinely uncomfortable. It's not a position any elected representative should take lightly, and I do not. We ask residents in this borough to trust us with decisions about their money. That trust is not something I take for granted. When the person voting for a pay rise is the same person who benefits from it, the conflict is obvious. I'm aware of that. I suspect many of my colleagues are too. I've thought carefully about how to approach this vote. There are reasonable arguments on both sides. Allowances that have not kept pace with the demands of the role can deter people from standing for elections, particularly those without independent means. But I also know that many people in this community are facing real financial pressures right now. Any decision we make about our own allowances will be seen against this backdrop, and rightly so. I believe the role of a councillor is, at its core, a commitment of time. Every person in this chamber gives their time to serve residents, and that time has to be balanced against everything else in their lives, including full-time jobs and family responsibilities. The allowance recognizes that commitment, but it never has, and it never should be, the reason for anybody's standing. I will vote in favour for this proposal, and my reason is straightforward. If passed, this will be the last time councillors will vote on their own allowances. Going forward, a process set by an independent committee will determine what councillors are paid. That removes the conflict of interest I described. Elected members will no longer sit in judgments of their own remuneration. I believe that is the right outcome, and that is why, despite my discomfort today, I will support this vote.
Thank you, Martijn. Could you turn off your microphone? And Prue, if you'd like to speak.
Thank you. This is one of those famous occasions where I wasn't planning to speak, but, but I am. And I'd like to start by thanking the panel. We have previously had two remuneration panels who have resigned en masse when their recommendations were rejected. And to quote Oscar Wilde, to lose one panel is a shame, but to lose two looks like carelessness. I would hate you to feel that you were in any way not valued for your work, and particularly the thoughtful way that you have approached this. Your expression that you wished to see a diverse membership of the council, that nobody should be precluded from being able to become a councillor for financial reasons. I would much prefer it if councillor allowances were set nationally by type of council. And in fact, that is Liberal Democrat national policy because I put it in there. when I was part of the working group that decided on local government policy. But that is not the case. And so we still have a situation where councils get to vote on their own allowances, and some succumb to greed and others succumb to hair shirts. And we have, as a result, across the country, an unfair and inconsistent system. So, as that's my view, I think I would have to go for a system which excludes party politicking as much as it could. And that is what the panel are suggesting, an inflation increase only and us not to have to vote anymore. So I think all the recommendations are excellent. We couldn't have done anything about the pension stuff before, which is why this item had to come to this meeting and not the March meeting, because we knew there was going to be a government announcement on pensions, and it came on the 11th of May in time for this meeting. So we know where we are with that. And luckily for us, we don't have to vote on whether we get pensions or not. We are, as a council, obliged to follow the law, which is why that's in the agenda for later on in the Constitution. But thank you, panel, for your work. And I think we should vote for this so that we don't have to have these sort of discussions anymore.
Thank you, Prue. Rachel.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and thank you very much to the remuneration panel. So councillors are local people elected by their neighbours to represent them and to work with the council officers to make the best possible decisions for local people. We work long hours, evenings and weekends, many of us around a full-time job. For this, we get a basic allowance which is less than the minimum wage. Nobody is a councillor for the money. Many of us, however, need the allowance in order to carry out the role. The allowance pays for petrol, bus fares, parking, printing, advice services and much more. Some of us have made a career sacrifice to serve as a councillor, and the allowance bridges that financial gap. Now, you might be in the fortunate position that you don't need the allowance. In that case, you can decide to forego it. If you make that decision, it would be good to do so graciously, in a way which doesn't try to shame those who do need the allowance. Because not everybody is in your circumstances. We have councillors here tonight who live on small pensions. We have councillors who are lower earners and those who have caring responsibilities. If you allow the councillor allowance to continue to decrease every year in real terms, you shut out good people who then can't afford to serve. And we need councillors who understand what it's like to live on a small pension. We need people from the demographics who sadly are likely to earn less. Women, people with disabilities, for example. Our residents are best served when they have councillors who understand the issues that they face from first-hand experience. We've heard tonight that this proposal is a pay rise. I think that could be misleading. The proposal is that we link the allowance to inflation. There would be no increase in the allowance in real terms. What it would do is stop inflation from eating away at the allowance. Wokinghams Council allowance has not increased since 2017, when it increased by 1%. Prices during that time have risen by over 37%, price rises which absolutely have been locked in. A 37% increase in prices and a 0 increase in the allowance. Because of this, we now have one of the lowest council allowances for unitary authority, thousands of pounds below those of our neighbours. We're not looking to close that gap, we just want to stop it from widening. The IT allowance was mentioned. Now, the council's IT department has issued laptops for security reasons, but councillors have still been providing their own phones, printers, headphones, and other equipment out of a dramatically shrinking allowance. The independent review covered this and recommends no change. If you vote against the proposal to link the council inflation tonight because you don't need the allowance, you're voting to shut out good people who want to serve as councillors but can't afford to take the financial hit. And a council made up just of those who are comfortably off is not a council which represents its residents. So I hope that everyone here tonight will vote for the recommendation of the independent review, an allowance which keeps pace with inflation.
Rachel,
and a council chamber which represents all local people, not just the well-off. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. And Imogen, you have a right of reply.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I really just wanted to say my laptop froze at the end, and I forgot to say one important thing, which was that the pension scheme also includes life insurance. I know one of the things that's said when Paul Fishwick died, and probably other councillors said, while in service of the councils, their dependents will receive some financial support if they are members of the pension scheme, because they don't currently, if they're not in part of it. This report is about equality and inclusivity and making sure whatever your financial circumstances are, you're not excluded from being a councillor. And I think that that is the most important thing to say here. These recommendations support democracy and decency for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Imogen. So we'll now move to a vote on this item. I will call a vote on recommendation 1 first. All those in favour of recommendation 1 as set out in the report, please raise your hand. Thank you. Those against? Thank you. And abstentions? Thank you. Thank you very much. The motion, recommendation 1 is carried. We now move on to recommendations 2 to 6. So all those in favour of recommendations 2 to 6 as set out in the report, please raise your hand. Thank you. All those against? And abstentions? Thank you. Recommendations 2 to 6 are carried. And thank you very much to the IRP panel members for your attendance this evening. You're very welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but if I could ask you to continue to view the meeting from the public gallery, please. We move on to agenda item 13, the political balance of the council and allocation and appointment to seats on committees and boards. I understand that the leader, Stephen, is proposing this report. Is that correct?
It is, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. And is there a seconder? Prue, thank you very much. Stephen, would you like to speak to the report?
I will be commendably brief, Mr. Mayor. And as allocation of seats on council committees is based on political proportionality, and the different group leaders have made their nominations, I ask council simply to endorse these arrangements. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does any councillor wish to speak against the report? Nope. So we now move to a vote on this item. All those in favour of the recommendations as set out in the report, please raise your hand. Thank you. All those against? And abstentions? Thank you very much. The recommendations are carried. Now we now move on to item 14 on the agenda, the appointments to joint committees, panels, working groups and other bodies. I understand that Stephen, as leader, you're proposing this again. Is that correct?
I am, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. And do you have a seconder? Thank you again, Prue. Stephen, again, would you like to speak to this report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I may take slightly longer this time. What I'm going to say, though, just in compensation, I think will cover our next agenda item, item 15 also. It might assist councillors in understanding the background to the nominations before you, some of which will require separate votes. If I read you my emails to the Leader of the Opposition dated 19th of May, I had already had a similar conversation with the Leader of the Labour Group. I'm not going to quote any other parts of correspondence, just my email to the Leader of the Opposition. Dear Pauline, to make progress at the council meeting smoother, I thought it would be helpful to outline my approach to committees and outside bodies. Most committee memberships are, of course, determined by political proportionality rules, but there are a few where there are 2 places and my group will only take 1 place. These are the Community Safety Partnership, Highwood Management College Conference, and SACRE. Are there any of these for which you have a particularly well-qualified candidate whom we could support? Highwood is in Southlake, where representation is split between our parties. It would seem appropriate that Kay served alongside either Carol or Beth. Do you have views on the other two? I'm asking the same question of Rachel Burgess, as I would like to appoint to the second place on the basis of suitability rather than party. On outside bodies, we are happy, as before, to give you an unopposed run at Finchhampstead Baptist Church Advisory Board, Sonningham District Welfare and Education Trust, and the Pigott Trust, all of which are in wards where you have all three councillors. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Stephen. Does any member wish to speak against the report? No. Sorry, thank you very much. Now, the nominations are set out in Appendix 2, which has been tabled. And my intention is to seek agreement for all of the appointments en bloc and seek a separate vote where there is more than one nomination for a seat. The seats that are in contention are highlighted in blue and Appendix 2. And I will call on the Chief Executive to take the separate votes first when we have more than one nominee.
Thank you very much. So I'll read out each nominee in alphabetical order. I'll ask for your support and then declare which councillor is appointed. So if I go first to the adoption panel, and the first nominee is Councillor David Hare. Can you indicate if you support? Thank you. And if I move on to the second nominee, that's Councillor Jackie Rance. Please, can you indicate your support? David Hare is appointed to the adoption panel. If I move on to the Community Safety Partnership, there are 3 nominees for 2 members. So the first nominee is Councillor Leon Cook. Can you indicate your support, please? The second nominee is Councillor Nagi Nagella. Can you indicate your support, please?
What I've just read out.
And the third nominee is Councillor Lou Timlin. Can you indicate your support, please? So those appointed are Councillor Lou Timlin and Councillor Nagi Nagella. So if I move now to the next, which is the fostering panel, we have 2 nominees. The first nominee, can you indicate your support for Councillor David Hare, please? And can you indicate your support, please, for Councillor Jackie Rance? Councillor David Hare is appointed. If I move on to the next, that's the Schools Forum, 1 member's required. The first nominee is Councillor Catherine Glover. Can you indicate your support, please? And the second nominee is Councillor Rebecca Margetts. Councillor Catherine Glover is appointed. If we move to the Secure Accommodation Panel, we have 2 nominees. The first, Councillor Prue Bray. And the second, Councillor Yusra Salman. Councillor Prue Bray is appointed. The next is the Thames Valley Police and Crime Panel. The first nominee is Councillor Sam Akhtar. And the second nominee, Councillor Stephen Newton. Councillor Stephen Newton is appointed. If we move on to the substitute, Councillor Rob Comer. And Councillor Dave Edmonds. Councillor Rob Comer is appointed. We move on to the Wokingham Learning Disability Partnership Board. Two nominees, Councillor David Hare and Councillor Rebecca Margetts. Councillor David Hare is appointed.
Thank you, Susan. We now move to a vote on the remaining nominations contained in Appendix 2. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Thank you. Against and abstentions. Thank you very much. The recommendations are carried. We now move to item 15 on the agenda, the appointments to outside bodies. And I understand once again, Stephen, as leader, you're proposing this report. Is that right?
It is.
And do you have a seconder? Prue, thank you very much again. Stephen, would you like to speak to the report?
I will speak very briefly. I've made the point in my introduction to item 14 about the engagement with both other parties on the council to try and ensure that we allow representation of councillors of all parties and allow councillors of all parties to represent the council on outside bodies. I've already explained my logic, and that logic applies in the way we will be voting on these nominations for outside bodies. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Does any councillor wish to speak against the report? Whoop-de-doo. In which case, we now move to the vote for this item. We'll take a vote on the appointments where there's more than one nominee first, and if I could ask the Chief Executive to seek votes for the highlighted nominees in Table Appendix 3.
Thank you. We'll follow the same process as before. So if I go first to the Age Concerned Twyford and District, Councillor Sam Akhtar. Councillor Martin Andrea. Councillor Martin Andrea appointed. Age UK Berkshire, Councillor Kay Gilder. Councillor David Hare. Councillor David Hare appointed. Atomic Weapons Research Establishment Local Liaison Committee. Councillor Moses Inyangavana. Councillor Chris Johnson. Councillor Chris Johnson appointed. Berkshire Healthcare NHS Foundation Trust, Councillor Pauline Jorgensen. Councillor Mike Smith. Councillor Mike Smith appointed. Berkshire Maestros, Councillor Joseph Barley. Councillor Andrew Gray. Councillor Andrew Gray appointed. Berkshire Museum of Aviation, Councillor Greg Bellow. Councillor Pauline Jorgensen. Councillor Greg Bellow appointed. Berkshire Pension Fund Advisory Panel, Councillor Charles Margetts. Councillor Stephen Newton. Councillor Stephen Newton appointed. Citizens Advice Wokingham, Councillor Rachel Bishop-Firth. Councillor Rebecca Margetts. Councillor Rachel Bishop-Firth appointed. Keep Mobile, Councillor Moses Inyangravana. Councillor Beth Rowland. Councillor Beth Rowland appointed. Mid and West Berks Local Countryside Access Forum, Councillor Catherine Glover. Councillor Wayne Smith. Councillor Catherine Glover appointed. Ready Bus Management Committee, Councillor Moses Ingenvana. Councillor Caroline Smith. Councillor Caroline Smith appointed. Royal Berkshire Hospital Foundation Trust Board of Governors. Councillor Pauline Jorgensen. Councillor Nagi Nagala. Councillor Beth Rowland. Councillor Beth Rowland appointed. South East Reserve Forces and Cadets Association, Councillor Peter Harper. Councillor Chris Johnson. Councillor Chris Johnson appointed. Standing Conference on Archives, Councillor Stephen Conway. Councillor Pauline Jorgensen. Councillor Stephen Conway appointed. Thames Basin Heaths Joint Strategic Partnership. Councillor Mark Brunel Walker. Councillor Shona Turtle. Councillor Mark Brunel Walker appointed. Substitute, Councillor Joseph Barley. Councillor Roberta Brooks. Councillor Roberta Brooks appointed. The Polehampton Charity, Councillor Stephen Conway. Councillor Leon Cook. Councillor Stephen Conway appointed. White Waltham Airfield Consultative Committee, Councillor Martin Alder. Councillor Pauline Jorgensen. Councillor Martin Alder appointed. Wokingham Borough Sports Council, Councillor Rohit Alawat. Councillor Mark Ashwell. Councillor Nagi Nagala. Councillor Mark Ashwell appointed. Wokingham Borough Sports Park Sponsorship Fund, Councillor Rohit Alawat. Councillor Mark Ashwell. Councillor Mark Ashwell appointed. Wokingham Job Support Centre Management Committee, Councillor Greg Bellow. Councillor Yusra Salman. Councillor Greg Bellow appointed. Wokingham Volunteer Centre, Councillor Rachel Burgess. Councillor Jackie Rance. Councillor Caroline Smith. Councillor Caroline Smith appointed. Wokingham Waterside Centre, Stephen Newton. Councillor Stephen Newton. Councillor Alison Swaddle. Councillor Stephen Newton appointed. Wokingham Youth Counselling and Information Service, Councillor Risha Singh. Councillor Vishal Srinivasan. Councillor Risha Singh appointed. Woodley Town Centre Management Initiative, 2 members. Councillor Greg Bellow. Councillor David Bragg. Councillor Carol Jewell. Councillor Greg Bellow and Councillor Carol Jewell appointed. Woodley Volunteer Centre, Councillor Kay Gilder. Councillor Beth Rowland. Councillor Beth Rowland appointed.
Thank you, Susan. We now move to a vote for all the remaining nominees. So all those in favour of the nominees in Appendix 3, where only one nominee has been proposed, please raise your hand. Thank you. Against and abstentions. Thank you very much. Thank you. The recommendations are therefore carried. So we now move to item 16, updates to the Constitution. Before I ask that this report be proposed, I'd like to advise that I have received a request to take the vote on the 5 recommendations in the report separately. I'm content to accept this request and therefore will be asking councillors to vote on each recommendation separately. I understand that Councillor Imogen Shepherd-Dubé is proposing this report. Is that correct? Thanks, Imogen. And you have a seconder? Prue. Thank you. Imogen, would you like to speak to the report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's me again, sorry. In this item, we're looking to agree on a few necessary updates to the Constitution. In item 1, the scheme of delegation, we are updating some of the officer titles and responsibilities and introducing the need for change for new charges under £100 to be reported to the executive. In item 2, we are delegating the appointment of deputy registration officers to the electoral registration officer, which is Andrew Moulton. In item 3, we are updating the members' allowance scheme as per what we have discussed earlier, so that our constitution matches the things that we've just agreed in agenda item 12. Item 4, we're adding changes that reflect the local government pension scheme, which of course is mandatory, as we've also already discussed. Item 5, we're updating the shareholders committee terms of reference. These housing companies are separate entities to Woking Borough Council, but they are held accountable by the shareholders committee. The introduction of the shareholders committee for these housing companies has been an important change that's happened since the Lib Dems took over this council, to ensure that these companies who are using public money are transparently held to accountable. We need to update the Constitution to reflect some of the agreed changes around the housing companies to allow these minor amendments to be made to the Constitution by the Council's monitoring officer. And really, that's kind of about it, really. Thank you.
Thank you, Imogen. That was nice and brief. Does any councillor wish to speak against the report? Just one. Charles. Thank you. In which case, Prue, do you wish to speak now or reserve your right?
I will reserve my right, please.
Thank you very much. Are there any other councillors who wish to speak either for or against this report? No, thank you very much. In which case, Charles.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My concerns with this report were in this section 5, relating to this kind of scrutiny of the independent company and how this proposal is structured. Loddon Homes has been a successful independent company which has enabled the council to provide affordable rental property, supported living and shared ownership. We all know the financial position of the council and the ever-increasing need to spend taxpayers' money as wisely as possible. A healthy structure in any environment, be it private or public sector, would ensure independent scrutiny of all decisions which involve taxpayers' money or a body which is supposed to act solely for the benefit of taxpayers. A strong management team would welcome and encourage this. The proposition before us, as I understand it, sees the council appoint its own senior officers as directors rather than independent people. Whilst I have very high regard for the senior officers in this council, I think this proposal would be stronger if there was some degree of independence and some degree of challenge to decisions which would benefit all. And I'm uncomfortable with that section 5, for those reasons. I have no objection to the other 4.
Thank you very much, Charles. Prue, as Secretary, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm a bit bewildered as to why we're having a separate vote on every single item, seeing as somebody's only spoken against one, but never mind. This should be very simple. Item 1 is a tweak to make sure the scheme of delegation to senior officers is brought up to date with what's needed to match their responsibilities. And nobody's spoken against it. Item 2 allows us to have a deputy electoral registration officer who can fulfil some of the extra duties that are now required and which otherwise could only be done by the electoral registration officer, who already has quite enough else to do. Nobody's spoken against that either. Item 3 just writes into the Constitution the decision on members' allowances we made earlier on. Nobody's spoken against that. And item 4 recognises the change in legislation that allows councillors to join the pension scheme. Just reflects the law. Nobody's spoken against that. Now, item 5 is to reflect the role of the shareholder committee in overseeing the housing companies. it will need to change slightly in the light of the changing status of Loddon Homes from a for-profit registered provider of social housing to a not-for-profit community benefit society. The reason that's being looked at, it's been agreed by the shareholder committee at a meeting which was a public meeting at which, as part of the shareholder committee, Pauline was able to attend and ask questions. It will have
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Sorry, Pauline, and what is the point of order?
The point of order is just to clarify that although I was at the meeting, the Conservative representation is...
That's not a point of order, Pauline.
I'm just clarifying. The Conservative representative does not have a vote.
I don't think that's a point of order.
It does not have a vote. Prue was implying that I was involved in the decision.
That would be a personal explanation then, wouldn't it?
Probably, yeah.
It's not because you didn't raise it in the meeting earlier, Mr. Mayor. But thank you for that. I will clarify exactly what I said, which is that Pauline was able to be present at the meeting and to ask questions. I didn't say she was unable to vote. It's a public meeting which everybody could have viewed. The benefit of this is that, among other things, we will save all the stamp duty land tax. We'll have a stamp duty land tax exemption, which will save us a lot of money. And that's one of the reasons why I'm fascinated that Charles, with his new financial portfolio, isn't interested in saving taxpayers' money, even though he talked about doing so. This is a proposal that has been through the processes of the council. It's been through the shareholders committee, which was a committee invented by the Liberal Democrats to provide precisely the level of public scrutiny that was completely missing when the Conservatives ran the council. We also have, several years ago now, taken the councillor representatives who were non-executive directors off the housing companies in order to provide actual specialist knowledge rather than political input of people who don't necessarily know what they're talking about when it comes to running companies or housing. That was already enacted. That is not changed by these changes in the Constitution. We do have to preempt possible changes to Berrybrook Homes, which will be minor tweaks, not quite as significant as a change in Loddon Homes' status. All of these changes are simply to reflect reality following new laws or government announcements, in the case of some of them, or are to implement decisions made by councillors. Yes, it would have been ideal had the Constitution Review Working Group been able to meet to discuss them in advance.
Can you begin to wrap up, please?
Yes, I am. If anybody has any problems with them, they are welcome to bring those to the next meeting of the Constitution Review Working Group. They didn't raise them earlier, so I suggest we just get on and vote for them.
Thank you. And Imogen, you have the right of reply.
I don't need one, thank you. Prue said it all.
Thank you very much. In which case we now move to to vote on these items. I'll be calling for separate votes as I mentioned. So first of all those in favour of recommendation 1 as set out in the report, please raise your hands. Thank you. Against and abstentions. Thank you. Recommendation 1 is carried. All those in favour of recommendation 2 as set out in the report, please raise your hand. Thank you very much. Against and abstentions. Thank you very much. Recommendation 2 is carried. All those in favour of recommendation 3 as set out in the report, please raise your hand. Thank you. Against and abstentions. Thank you. Recommendation 3 is carried. All those in favour of recommendation 4 as set out in the report, please raise your hand. Thank you. Against and abstentions. Thank you. Recommendation 4 is carried. All those in favour of recommendation 5 as set out in the report, please raise your hand. Thank you. Against and abstentions. Recommendation 5 is carried. Thank you. We now move on to item 17 on the agenda, the Charville Neighbourhood Plan. And I understand, Stephen, that you'll be proposing this report. Is that correct?
I will indeed, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. And do you have a seconder?
I do. I have Leon Cook, our new elected member for Thames Ward, who's kindly consented to act as seconder.
Thank you, Liam. Stephen, would you like to speak to the report?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm delighted to do so. In line with the recommendations in your agenda, I ask you to approve for adoption the Charville Neighbourhood Plan, which was supported by an overwhelming majority of the parishioners who voted on the same day as the borough council elections. I thank the parish council and the volunteers who worked on the neighbourhood plan for their commitment and their local knowledge. The neighbourhood plan, once adopted, will sit alongside local and national policies to guide and manage development in the parish. It also has the advantage from the local community's point of view of increasing its entitlement to community infrastructure levy receipts on any new building in the parish. Parishes with an adopted neighbourhood plan receive 25% of SIL receipts, as compared with 15% for parishes without an adopted neighbourhood plan. So there are very obvious advantages if you believe there is development in your area, likely in the near future, to go for a neighbourhood plan. And Charville has had the great sense to do so. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Stephen. Does anybody wish to speak against the report? Nope. In which case we now move to a vote on this item. All those in favour of the recommendations as set out in the report, please raise your hand. Thank you. Against and abstentions. Thank you very much. The recommendations are carried. We now move to item 18 on the agenda, the councillor question time. I'd like to remind executive councillors that responses to questions must be no longer than 2 minutes, and these will be timed. So, Councillor Vishal Srinivasan first, please. No, I thought it was online. Is he not online? Is he muted or something? Vishal, we can't hear you. Are you muted, perhaps? As we can't hear from Vishal, rather than ignore it, I'm going to read Vishal's question for him. This is a question to the Executive Councillor for Active Travel, Transport and Highways. And the question is, the residents in Shinfield are not feeling safe with the lack of stop signs and speed calming measures in and around the Shinfield Meadows area. This is along Bolton Drive and at Beak and Westhall. The council says that as no fatalities have been recorded yet, that it is not a problem. But we are one accident away from a family being changed and traumatised forever for something that is so easy to solve. What is the council doing to try to solve this issue, and why isn't action being taken now? They promised residents a home, not a gamble on whether they and their kids will be hit by a reckless driver. Adrian.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for reading Vishal's question. Before answering, I do need to correct the statement that the absence of a fatality prevents a review of road safety where there's otherwise a case for doing so. Residents would expect collision history, such as a fatality or serious injury, to be taken into account when prioritising what gets reviewed, but it's not the only factor. A road safety concern can be raised on any issue, and indeed they have. This year, we received an independent road safety audit for the development from the developer, which identified a number of matters that do need to be addressed by the developers. And progress has already been made with some of these, with further improvements planned. All road safety matters will need to be satisfied ahead of any adoption. At the Beak Avenue Westhall Street junction, road markings have now been refreshed in April, in line with the approved planning design. The road safety audit identified further concerns at the junction, and the council has asked the developer to consider additional measures, including additional give-way signage and road markings, which are expected to be installed by the developer shortly. On Bolton Drive, the developer has undertaken a speed survey which did not identify any concerns in relation to the current speed limit, and neither did the road safety audit. However, as people will be aware, under our Safer Streets project, we are reviewing residential areas from this perspective, and I trust that the concern on this issue has already been raised in the recent consultation. Whilst developers retain responsibility rightly for these issues until adoption, I would like to assure you and residents that the council remains engaged and will work with developers as required on issues of road safety.
Thank you, Adrian. I understand that Vishal is back online and hopefully has heard that. So if that's the case, Vishal, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, I do. And as luck would have it, I was in the bathroom the one time that my name's called. But my supplementary is this issue isn't limited to just Bicky Avenue, and it's all around Shinfield. A lot of residents are complaining to me that everyone's passing the buck. It's either that the council's responsible, but they're not doing anything, or the developer's responsible, or the property management's responsible. Would the lead member be able to assist me and go down a street one day, see how it is for ourselves, and maybe come to a better understanding with all of the parties involved to get a better solution for our residents?
Yeah, thank you, Vishal. As I said, in this area, responsibility is clear. It remains with the developer until the streets are adopted. However, the council is not unengaged with them, and you can use the road safety concern facility on our website to raise these concerns. I am familiar with the junction. I took the trouble to refresh my knowledge of it today. And I do agree that some of the junctions are somewhat unusual for a modern housing estate. If you have specific concerns, please do let me have them, or better still, raise them as road safety concerns, and officers will look at them as they do with all such reports.
Thank you, Adrian. Our next question is from Moses Ian Gumpuena.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for giving me an advance notice of your election. My question is to the Executive Member for Active Travel, Transport and Highways. Rushy Way serves as a critical distributor road and bus route for Lower Early. Yet, after 40 years of service, it is showing clear signs of structural and not merely cosmetic failure. Recent patching and surface dressing have proven inadequate, leaving a degraded surface that presents a significant safety risk. Most feeder roads onto Rushy Way are also in obvious state of disrepair and are potential safety hazards for cyclists. They also create severe accessibility barriers for wheelchair users, parents with buggies, and the elderly. This raises clear discrepancy between the council's active travel rhetoric and the reality of residents' experience. Under Section 41 of the Highways Act 1980, the council has a statutory duty to maintain the highway for safe use. Given that short-term reactive repairs are increasingly cost-effective and fail to address the underlying sub-base deterioration, what specific medium to long-term structural maintenance programs are in place for Rushy Way?
Thank you, Moses. Rushy Way between Carshalton Road and Lower Early Way was surface dressed in the summer of 2024 and remains in a satisfactory and safe condition. Some junctions on that length of road were not treated at the time, as these have been identified for replacement surfacing in the future. Based on current assessments of road condition and the available budget, Rushy Way between the Chalfont Way roundabout and the roundabout at Beeston Way will be included in the 2027 structural maintenance programme. This is likely to include both roundabouts and their approaches, and this is a substantial part of our expected programme for 2027. You'll be aware that facilities for pedestrians are to be improved with an additional crossing on Rushy Way, supplementing the existing informal crossings. As a result of decades of government underfunding of highway maintenance, as well as most other aspects of local government, our highway network is not in the condition we would like. This was recognised by the previous administration, and the situation has only deteriorated as a result of growing traffic, vehicle weights and climate change. Our maintenance programme is determined strictly by the condition of the roads, based on inspection data from scanning and visual inspection over many years. Any one of us, and indeed most residents, can point to a road, cycleway or pavement in an area they'd like to be improved, but the council must base its programme of work on the evidence, not public pressure. As you're aware, we are intending to invest more on these issues in future years, helped by some additional government funding. The safety of the network remains paramount, and if you believe that any of the issues you've observed present a genuine safety issue or are preventing access to people in any way, please do report these via our online reporting service. They will all be inspected and, if necessary, addressed. Finally, I'd like to welcome you as the new shadow for active travel, transport and highways, and I look forward to working with you on these issues. Please do raise your concerns directly with officers when you meet them, and I hope you'll take the opportunity to understand the processes officers use and indeed contribute to the continuous improvement of our roads, cycleways and pavements for all of our residents.
Thank you. Moses, do you have a supplementary?
I do, Mr. Mayor. I think the issue of Rushway being in safe condition is debatable, because I happen to have some experience of highways and roads. And coincidentally, I went on an inspection with a retired highway engineer of 40 years experience, but we can look at that later. I actually said in my first question that the issue is not surface dressing or patching. That won't be adequate. But can the executive member confirm that full reconstruction or major resurfacing of this vital route is included in the current 5-year capital program, not surface dressing or patching?
We don't have a forward 5-year plan for which roads will be done when. We have a forward view of 3 years. That can obviously change as a result of road deterioration and the effects of the climate. I can confirm that the work to be carried out in 2027 between Chalfont Way and Beeston Way will be plain and inlay, so effectively full resurfacing. However, people do need to be aware this is roughly 5 times the cost of surface dressing. And whilst it gives a better and more durable end result, every piece of plain and inlay resurfacing that we do results in 4 other pieces of road of equivalent length not being maintained. The council has limited funds. We have to prioritise safety and making the network as durable and resistant to potholes as possible. And this is the way we do it. And I'm sure the officers will explain to you in your shadow role the basis of that and the economics behind it.
Thank you, Adrian. And next, Rohit Alawat has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Adrian, again for you. Local residents regularly report potholes on the council's online portal, often with photographs. Contractors attend site and repair only the specific pothole shown in the submitted images, leaving other clearly visible defects on the same stretch of road untouched. Residents reasonably assume that when a contractor visits, the condition of the surrounding carriageway will be assessed and other safety-related potholes addressed at the same time. Instead, residents are asked to submit reports, resulting in additional call-outs, delays, and repeated disruptions. Can the executive member explain why contractors are not required to undertake a wider inspection of the affected road when attending a reported pothole, and whether the administration will review this approach to ensure better value for money, improved road safety, and a reduced administrative burden on residents? Thank you.
Thank you, Rohit. Improving road safety, value for money and reducing burden on residents obviously is important to us. But the processes of inspecting a road and determining whether a repair is required and the process of effecting that repair obviously are different skill sets undertaken by different people. The approach to pothole repairs is based on the risk they cause, aligned with our statutory duty to maintain the highway in safe condition. When a defect is reported, it's inspected and categorised according to our maintenance policy. Safety critical defects meeting thresholds are prioritised for repair in specified timescales, with the most serious being addressed within 2 hours of inspection. Contractors are inspected to address the reported defect that has been assessed and recorded through the system. This ensures their accountability, auditable decision-making, and a consistent application of our policy across the network. It also enables us to manage resources effectively across the range of demands we face. Resident reports are an important and essential part of identifying issues. However, our highway inspection programme, which you can read on the Council's website, also identifies issues requiring repair, and these are batched together where appropriate. It's not the role of repair teams to undertake wider inspections. However, contractors are not prevented from reporting or addressing additional defects they encounter. Where further safety critical issues are identified on site, these can be made safe by the contractor or reported for prompt follow-up action. And we regularly reinforce this expectation through our contract management activity. Officers do recognise residents' expectations to address wider issues during visits. Policy and site circumstances can dictate what repairs can be undertaken together, and not every case will be the same. It's always a balance. Less serious defects may not require immediate attention, but will be monitored through our ongoing inspection process. Through our joint working with our contractors under the Highways Alliance, our teams regularly review this particular issue, and we'll always seek to improve outcomes for residents wherever possible to reduce or avoid extra reporting and extra visits.
Sorry, thank you, Adrian. and Rohit, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your answer. Residents in my ward are particularly unhappy with the Chilcombe Way. The contractor came to repair the potholes that were reported and ignore others. You recently said that the council needs residents' help in identifying potholes and encourage people to report them. My residents are disappointed that they reported potholes and only part of the road was fixed. At a time when the council should be driving efficiencies, this attitude value for money for taxpayer is part of a wider problem. Do you agree with me that the piecemeal approach is not cost-effective and waste of time, including for my resident who now have to make yet another report? Thank you.
I'm not sure I caught all of that, but I don't agree with you that the council is not pursuing a value for money approach here. I think you said earlier that potholes are, or it might have been Moses' question actually, pothole repairs are not an efficient way of maintaining the roads. I absolutely agree. Stopping potholes through our surface dressing and other resurfacing activity is the best way to do this. However, we need to repair the potholes that create a safety issue. Sadly, our budgets don't allow us to attend to less serious issues. If you have concerns about individual potholes that you believe represent a safety issue, please do report these yourselves. Please do encourage residents to report them. And if you're not satisfied with the answer, then you're always able to escalate these issues to me.
Thank you very much. And finally, our final question. Sorry, is there a problem with the microphones or something? There seemed to be some indication from over there. Oh. Thanks very much. Well, I suspect we'll just have to put up with it for the moment. Okay, thank you. And our final question is from Leon Cook.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A considerable number of families have contacted me both prior and post the election with regards to their children not gaining places at local schools despite them living in very close proximity. In Wargrave, this is a particular problem. Can the executive member comment as to why this is and if anything can be done to help those families find places at their school of preference within the catchment area?
Thank you for your question, Leon. At secondary level, the only relevant school is the Pigott, and all catchment area pupils were able to secure a place at this school for 2026 entry. So I don't think your question's about that. For primaries, in your whole ward, the overwhelming majority of catchment children were offered places at their local schools this year. Moreover, in all cases where a family did not secure a place at their preferred school, this was linked to parental preference rather than a lack of local provision, as places at an alternative catchment school did and do exist. 87% of families got their first preference, which matches the borough-wide average. Of course, some families will be disappointed to have got a lower preference place, but I'm afraid that cannot be avoided in a system which prioritises preference over proximity. But looking at what we might do to address any similar problem, most schools in the borough belong to multi-academy trusts, and therefore the council cannot make decisions about their admissions. However, for schools that are still with the local authority, We have already changed the admissions oversubscription criteria so that from the next round of admissions, distance from the school will be a factor, not catchment area. And we did that in February. This will affect the Robert Pigott infant and junior schools, but no others in your ward. This change was not made to address a problem in Wargrave, but to help with issues in other areas where new housing and schools have been built and allocation of places doesn't fit well with the pre-existing catchment areas. All that said, if you can provide me with some concrete evidence of a problem in Wargrave, I'll be very happy to investigate further.
Thank you, Prue. Leon, do you have a supplementary?
I do. Thank you very much for your answer. I obviously appreciate that this is there's a finite amount of space and capacity across the entire borough, and that includes Thames. Just for the sake of clarity, this is with regard to Wargrave Junior School. I met with the head and the governor today, and there were 12 places oversubscribed. And the 4 or 5 families that I actually spoke to on the Ridgeway are all within 0.3 of a mile. So some have been sent to Craters Hill, some have been sent to Polehampton and Twyford. So it's within the catchment in that context. So any additional advice to those families, and I will share their details with you, will be very welcome. My supplementary question, therefore, is can the executive confirm whether there will not be a further lowering of Thames PAN numbers given WBC's forecast announced last year? And will there be no future closure of schools overseen by WBC within the Thames ward?
That is a very large question you are opening up there. We have, in fact, most councillors are probably already aware, I know you're new on the council, we have a situation where the number of children, the birth rate has fallen off a cliff, and the number of children coming into our schools has fallen dramatically. Primary schools exist all around the borough, and in every area apart from the southwest, which is sort of Shinfield, Swallowfield, Spencer's Wood area, we have considerable surplus of places, and that is highlighted in our school place planning documents in the strategy that was approved, I think, about this time last year. We don't want to close any schools. We don't control all the schools. We only have a limited number of schools, as I said in my first answer. So we are holding hands with the multi-academy trusts and trying to reduce PANs across the board so that all schools can remain open and no school has to close. Because primary schools particularly are very, very dependent on the funding they get per pupil. And if you only have 12 pupils in a class, you still have to provide a primary school teacher that would be paid for by the contributions that came with 30 children. So you have a funding shortfall, and it's very easy to destabilise a primary school. So we have to keep in step with each other. We are trying that exercise. It's very difficult because everybody's worried. So I cannot promise you that we will not close a school, but we have no plans to do so. And in fact, to open the new school in Spencer's Wood to adjust the problem there so that there are enough school places in that local area, we are planning to basically lift and shift one of the schools in an area where we have a great surplus of places so that that school doesn't have to close and we can provide the places somewhere else where they're needed. So it's a complicated dance, and I'd be very happy to communicate with you about it.
Thank you, Prue. Now, that brings us to the conclusion of today's session. But before we close it, on Carol's behalf, I would just like to invite all members here for a drink in the boardroom after the council meeting, which Carol has kindly provided some drinks and some nibbles, and that's to all members here.